Before we dive into the main topic, please just take a moment to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, like this podcast, and leave a comment to support the channel. Your engagement, it really does help us out. Welcome to the debate. Today, we're undertaking a deep dive into the architecture of achievement. Specifically, we're examining the prescriptive methodologies found in instructional material, all designed to maximize goal success. In this material, while it gives us a clear tension, is achievement primarily the result of an ironclad systematic structure, or is it fundamentally fueled by something else? Something more like internal conviction and flexibility?
Indeed. We're sitting squarely on the dilemma that I think separates wishful thinking from long-term accomplishment. The central question is whether success in achieving, ambitious, long-term goals is primarily secured by a rigid, measurable structure, the external scaffolding of accountability, or if it depends more heavily on the internal commitment, what the source actually calls the why, and the essential adaptability required to navigate real-world failures and complexity.
And I maintain that systematic structure, precise, measurable metrics, and unyielding discipline are the primary engines of goal success. Structure is what operationalizes aspiration. Without clarity and measurability, the internal why is, well, it's just a beautiful sentiment, one that's very easy to abandon when difficulty strikes.
And I'm going to contend that an over-reliance on that same rigid structure can paradoxically become the goal's greatest vulnerability, especially when we're dealing with complex personal development or long-term career shifts. The ability to adapt when the original plan inevitably fails is far more critical than just a strict adherence to metrics. The strength of that internal conviction, that deep personal motivation, is what enables the necessary adjustment.
I see why you'd think that, but let me give you a different perspective, grounded firmly in the reliable mechanisms described in the material. Effective goal achievement relies fundamentally on structure, clarity, and, most importantly, consistency. This structured approach, it minimizes the crippling role of temporary, volatile motivation. We know a strong goal must be specific, measurable, and time-bound, the S, M, and T of the framework. Without these three properties, the goals remain, as the source states, too general and easy to forget. They're just relegated to the status of mere dreams because they aren't actionable.
But defining S, M, and T just gets you out of the starting gate. They are the tactical map, sure, but what powers the vehicle through the desert? The text gives us a clear distinction between motivation and discipline. You can be motivated to start, but the difference between discipline, which is steady and reliable, and motivation, which fluctuates daily, it's crucial. Consistency, driven by daily routines and habits, is the only reliable way to transform small, daily actions into meaningful results over time. The habit formation process, the cue routine reward loop, is essential precisely because it reduces the need for daily willpower. It bypasses decision fatigue. If you rely on discipline to study every day at the same time, the behavior becomes automatic after a few months, allowing you to sustain progress without all that emotional overhead. Structure is the path to that necessary automaticity.
That's a compelling argument, especially regarding the mechanism of decision fatigue, but I would frame the relationship between structure and meaning differently. While structure certainly provides an operational framework for execution, true commitment and long-term success depend more heavily on the goal being relevant and deeply meaningful, the R component, the internal why. The material is unequivocal on this. Goals must spring from the heart, not external pressure from friends, family, or societal expectation.
I grant that the why is the initial spark. It's the necessary condition for interest, but it's the how that prevents the fire from burning out. An intense emotional connection doesn't pay the bills or teach you a language. Specific, disciplined actions do.
Now, the why is the deep, sustaining reservoir you return to when the specific how fails, as it inevitably will. The stronger that internal conviction, for example, I want to change my future and gain financial independence for my children, the easier it is to stay committed when that structure cracks under pressure. And we need to consider the limitations of measurability, the M.
Take critical personal and social goals, like becoming a more confident leader or improving the quality of my relationships. These are inherently difficult to rigidly quantify in a way that truly captures the desired internal shift. In these complex, high-impact domains, meaningfulness, the R, must inherently outweigh strict measurability. The true achievement is a conceptual or relational shift, not simply a checklist item.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because it creates a fatal flaw in the system. If it isn't measurable, how can you track, verify, and maintain progress? If your goal is improving communication skills, you must operationalize the action, or it remains perpetually vague. You need actions like, I will initiate 3 conversations a week, or I will practice reflective listening for 20 minutes a day using recorded materials. Tracking progress is the psychological bedrock for staying on course and maintaining momentum. A measurable goal like, I want to walk 30 minutes 5 times a week is demonstrably superior to the ambiguous, I want to exercise more. The very act of tracking, through checklists or visual charts, provides immediate, tangible reinforcement of positive behavior. If the goal isn't measurable, how do you know if you are being disciplined or just coasting?
I agree that tracking provides useful feedback. But measurability, if misapplied or, too strictly enforced, it forces us to focus on trivial inputs rather than profound aims. When a person is attempting a significant transformation, like overcoming severe procrastination or deep-seated self-doubt, the measurable outcome, say, spending 20 minutes practicing, is secondary to the mindset shift and the development of resilience after failure. Let's take the example of an entrepreneur trying to make sales calls. If they track 10 calls completed, but all 10 were failures, and they spiral into self-doubt and quit for a week, well, the measurable metric reinforced nothing but the perceived failure. What truly matters is the growth mindset, the belief that one can improve with effort, which is what determines whether they try again the next day. The measurable action is necessary, I'll give you that, but it is not sufficient for success in the face of genuine internal challenge.
But if we ignore the measurable action, we rely too heavily on pure motivation or positive self-talk, which is exactly what the material cautions against. Structure is the only guardrail against human frailty and emotional swings. We need to measure the inputs because those are the actions we can control.
Okay, let's shift our focus specifically to the very beginning, the initial stages of commitment, where your reliance on discipline is most acutely tested. You are correct that discipline sustains, but the source notes explicitly that the beginning, the first, say, 7 to 14 days, is the hardest part. The brain actively resists change and tries to pull you back to old habits. To overcome that powerful biological inertia, you need a strong catalyst. This initial push often requires powerful visualization, imaging yourself successfully giving that presentation, and a strong emotional connection, that surge of motivation. It's what gets the inertia moving. We use motivation to start the habit, to overcome that initial wall of resistance, and then discipline to continue it until the behavior becomes automatic. Without that initial emotional investment, most people never get past the first week of friction. He risks completely overemphasizing fleeting motivation as a sustainable force. That initial burst of passion, it quickly dissipates. The key insight from the material is that the only way to make something feel normal after the difficult first weeks, or automatic after 60 to 90 days, is through consistent, disciplined action. Relying on initial passion is identified as a primary reason for goal failure. Structure is the superior, reliable mechanism that bypasses emotional resistance entirely. How? By utilizing techniques like habit stacking, attaching a new, difficult habit to an existing automatic routine. For example, studying Mandarin immediately after brewing your morning coffee. The cue is already there, established and reliable. This structured mechanism ensures daily progress regardless of how inspired you feel that morning. Motivation is a mood. Structure is commitment made visible and, guaranteed. That is robust, I'll admit, but it presupposes a stable environment. Structure and routine are excellent tools for predictability, but they fail when life intervenes dramatically, as the source acknowledges it often does.
And that's precisely where the robust systematic approach proves its superiority. The plan isn't meant to be brittle. It's meant to be adaptive, but within the confines of a commitment to process. Success requires us to anticipate challenges, not merely react to them. We must build contingency into the structure. For instance, anticipating a busy work week and proactively adjusting your study schedule in advance. Failures should be treated as feedback to refine the existing plan and the measurable actions, not as permission to abandon consistency. The systematic approach ensures you stop wasting time trying to decide what to do next, and instead maintain focus, even when the road gets bumpy.
Planning ahead is certainly necessary, but the source acknowledges true unexpected obstacles and debilitating financial difficulties that are external and frankly beyond immediate predictive control. Let's use your financial example. If the original measurable goal was to save $1,000 this month and an unexpected medical emergency forces a massive unplanned expense, well, forcing consistency on a plan that is no longer realistic, the A in the framework, leads directly to crushing discouragement. This feeling of overwhelming failure is cited as a major mistake in goal achievement, often leading to total abandonment. True resilience requires adjusting the goal itself, perhaps changing the savings target to $200 for the month, and staying committed to the underlying purpose. Adaptability is essential for the long-term survival of the goal, whereas rigid metric-based consistency, when unrealistic, leads to frustration and guarantees failure.
But adjusting the plan to $200 is still a structural adaptation. It remains squarely within the framework. You are simply recalculating the attainability and the time frame. My point is that the underlying commitment to the process, the daily discipline, is what makes that intelligent adaptation possible. Without the measurable routine established previously, there is nothing solid to adapt to. You would just throw your hands up and quit.
I believe the core difference lies here. You prioritize the mechanism of the daily routine as the non-negotiable anchor, while I prioritize the purpose as the non-negotiable anchor which permits the adjustment of the routine. If the goal is not deeply meaningful, that adjustment will inevitably be downwards, towards zero, because the internal conviction won't be strong enough to justify continuing the hard work when the structure has collapsed.
Ultimately, clarity, measurement, and discipline consistency are the non-negotiable foundations for turning generalized aspirations into reality. The structured processes, smart goal setting, habit stacking, and rigorous tracking provide the essential roadmap and the reliable engine for steady, predictable progress. This ensures commitment endures even when initial motivation wanes and even when external conditions require temporary quantitative adjustments.
And I would affirm the utility of structure as a management tool and as a feedback mechanism. But the ultimate success of a complex or deeply personal goal relies on internal conviction, the enduring, resilient strength of the why, and the essential flexibility to learn from unavoidable failure and adapt to unforeseen external circumstances. True achievement balances consistency in action with the necessary adaptability of the goal itself, ensuring the purpose survives the failure of the initial plan.
Both approaches, I think, illuminate different paths to success. It reminds the listener that mastering goal achievement requires navigating the dynamic relationship between rigid structure and meaningful flexibility, based on, the nature of the specific goal and the life we must live while pursuing it.
Indeed. And there is much more to explore in this material regarding how mindset shifts and internal goal alignment complement external structural planning.
Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, like, and leave a comment to support the channel.